Hi, I'm Sue from the blog Stories of an Unschooling Family. Welcome to my video. I thought that I would put together a few shorter videos. I've been making a few longer ones about Evernote recently, but I'm going to keep an eye on the time and see if I can do a series of videos on a few basic questions of unschooling. And today I'd like to talk about what unschooling actually is. It might seem a silly question, but there's a lot of different ways of unschooling, and of course I'll just be giving you unschooling from my family's point of view. We've been homeschooling now. This is our 22nd year, and when we set out all those years ago with our eldest daughter, we just so happened to be surrounded by unschoolers. I don't know how that happened. It was at a time when the John Holt magazine newsletter was still being printed, and we actually went to an unschooling camp for 3 days when Felicity was about 6 years old, and we saw unschooling in action. But even though we did that, I really didn't understand exactly what unschooling was. All the families around us seemed very confident. They talked about their children following their own interests, learning from life, and they were doing some wonderful things. We went away to camp and all the children were, they seemed knowledgeable about the bush, and they were involved in crafts, and they were producing a lot of good things. I went to a number of homeschooling talks, and the same thing, very much a lot of excitement about what children were learning and producing. Now, I knew that what I wanted for my children was for them to love learning, and this is what unschoolers were telling me, that unschooling leads to children who know how to learn and that love learning. So I started off homeschooling my children, sat back and I waited. I thought that soon my children would be producing all these wonderful things. The walls would fill up with beautiful posters and drawings, and my children would be out in the backyard building tremendous things. Someone would want to rewire the house. Somebody else would be talking about or plans, even though they were little, they were going to travel the world and do all sorts of wonderful things. But actually nothing much happened, and we just sort of drifted through our days, and I thought I must have missed something. So we actually moved away from unschooling for a little while. I thought that unschooling meant that I couldn't be involved with my children's education, that I had to stand back and let them take the lead entirely, learn naturally, learn from life, without any interference whatsoever from me. And I misunderstood unschooling, but it was enough for me to leave the unschooling pathway. We went along other pathways, had a dip into Charlotte Mason, classical curriculum, all sorts of different other things before we made our way back to unschooling. And when we actually got back, I didn't even realize that we were unschooling, because I was very involved with my children's education. I'd learned how that the children need to have their environment enriched. It wasn't just any good sitting back and saying, go on, learn something, and expecting them to come up with all these amazing things. Of course, they do come up with some amazing things on their own, but that's not all I found out that unschooling is about. So I started doing a few things with my children. Stewing, that's the word that I learned eventually, was to enrich their environment with resources, but also with experiences, taking them places, talking to them, stewing interesting things along their pathway. And I discovered that I could get involved with my children. There wasn't anything against that at all. So I could share all these things that I was itching to share with them. I thought, well, how on earth are they going to learn about Shakespeare, which is one of my passions, if I'm not allowed to introduce it to them? So I started saying things like, hey, look, I'm watching Shakespeare, would you like to come and join me? And they did. I've passed on a lot of my interests to my children, and I've encouraged their own interests. And so I guess that unschooling is a child following their own interests, in a natural way, but it doesn't mean that a parent can't get involved as well. I've found out that unschooling isn't something that only children do. Everybody is an unschooler. I have so many friends who don't even realize they're unschoolers. They're involved in all sorts of activities of their own, learning new and exciting things every week. And I class those as unschoolers, even though they don't know about it. And that's what I'm like. I'm going from one thing to another. At the moment, I'm learning video making. I'm going to go and do a Google Hangout on air when I've got a bit of time. That's a new skill I want to learn. Adults learn in an unschooling way, I think, and this is the way unschooling children also learn. So, there's one reason that I write this blog, because years ago I didn't really understand what unschoolers did. I read a few books and they said, oh well, you know, we don't have a schedule, we don't have any plans, we don't do this, we don't do that, but I could never get an idea of what unschoolers actually do. They just roll out of bed any old time and drift through their days. And this is one reason that I'm writing my stories on my blog, to give a concrete idea of one family's how they're unschooling in stories. This is what we do. Now, my family is different from your family, and we won't do things the same, but I think there's enough principles that we all share in common that we can learn from each other, share ideas. My ideas aren't the only ones. You might like my ideas, you may not like my ideas, but they might give you other ideas, and that's what I like about the blogging community, the internet community, is that we can have a continuous conversation and learn from each other. So, summing up today, what is unschooling? I think it's children learning in a natural way, in a way that will give them a love of learning for the rest of their lives. They learn how to learn. It is the same way adults learn, and the role of parents maybe is to get involved with their children, is to learn themselves and be a good example of learning. And next time maybe we can talk about how do we know that unschooling works, and is it for us? Thank you for watching my video.